Continuing on with the door family that we've been developing over the last several movies, in this movie we're going to add some shared parameters to this file. Now, if you recall in an earlier chapter, the chapter on annotation families, we did discuss the concept of shared parameters. So I encourage you to go back and review that movie if need be. Shared parameters are a useful and powerful way for you to manage parameters externally to both the project and family files in your firm. We create a single shared parameter file. It's shared across the entire company, and then we can use it in multiple families and/or projects. The reason we want to do this is one of the main features of shared parameters is that they can be scheduled and they can be included in tags. All of the parameters we've created directly in the family editor cannot be included in schedules and tags. So that becomes a major consideration if the parameters you're creating you also want to have in your reports and in your schedules and so on. So make sure that you factor that in when you're doing the design and planning of your family content. I have here on screen RFE Door Step 5 family. It's provided with the exercise files. If you're continuing along with your own version instead, you want to make sure that you include one other nested family, and that is the door panel light, which is also provided in the same folder. So you can simply go to the Insert tab and choose Load Family and load that family in, and then your file should look like mine does. And we're going to use that second nested family shortly. Now, we can use shared parameters for almost anything, but again, the main goal would be for the things that we want to schedule. So what I recommend you do is just look at your existing door schedule for your company and go through each column and decide which columns are already provided for in the out-of-the-box Revit content and which are not. And the ones that aren't, you'd probably want to create those with shared parameters. So let's click on the Manage tab, go to the Shared Parameters button, and the Edit Shared Parameters dialog will launch. Now, if you've been following along in the course since the beginning, then you should already have the LDC Shared Parameters file loaded right here. If you haven't, then you want to click Browse, and it's located in Exercise Files, Finished Files, and Chapter 2. And the current state that it's in is where we left it at that annotation chapter. So we're going to make sure that that's what we have open. And what you'll notice here is the current parameter group that loads is rooms. And in fact, that's the only parameter group in the file because that's what we created back in the annotation chapter. What we're going to do now is add another group and additional parameters to it. And I really want to stress this part. Even though rooms is in here, sometimes people think, well, I should have one shared parameter file for rooms and another one for doors. That's not the case. I want to completely reiterate that you should have only one shared parameter file. It should be shared across the entire office. So check with your CAD manager, check with your BIM manager, make sure that you're pointing to the correct one. There are tools out there that help you merge them back together if you accidentally end up with more than one, but you really want to try and avoid that. So one shared parameter file, that's the rule. Okay, so let's click on New Group here, and I'll call this Doors. Click OK. Then I'm going to add a couple new parameters to that. Now, I'm going to keep it pretty simple for this exercise just to kind of get the point across. The first one I want to create, I'm going to call Exist. And this is going to be a yes/no parameter. Now, that's going to create a checkbox for me that I can assign to my family. And when I check the box, I'm saying that this is an existing door. And when I uncheck the box, it's not an existing door. So that'll be the first one. Let's add another new parameter. And this one is going to be called Panel Type. And this one's going to be a family type parameter. Now, you may recall from the previous few movies that our panel type nested family is a generic model. So I need to make sure that I'm choosing generic model here and panel type, and I'll click OK. And I could add as many more parameters as I need in my schedule, but I'm going to stop with just those two for now. Let's click OK. And now let's go ahead and start adding those to this family. So the panel type is pretty easy to add. I just simply click on the nested family that's already here in my file and label it like we've done before. And instead of going right to creating the parameter, you look up here at the top and you can either create this as a family parameter, which is what we've been doing for the last several chapters, or a shared parameter. So I'm going to choose shared parameter here, and that kind of grays everything else out down here because all of this will now be determined by the shared parameter. So I'm going to click select. It already goes to my doors group. I'll choose panel type, and I'll click OK. And notice that all of this fills in based on the way we previously defined the shared parameter. Now, as far as group under, you can put it anywhere you want. I'm going to put this under graphics. And I just want to stress here the two little notes. The main reason that we're doing this is because a family parameter cannot appear in schedules and tags. A shared parameter can appear in schedules and tags. It can also appear in these other things as well. So that's important. That's why we're doing it this way. Click OK. And then to use the other shared parameter, we need to go to family types, and we're just simply going to click add over here. I'm going to add it as a shared parameter. Click select, add the existing parameter, click OK. And I'm going to group this under phasing, because it's either existing or not existing, so phasing seems like a good spot for that. I'm going to change this to an instance parameter because I don't need a whole new type to determine whether or not it's existing or not. I just need to be able to check each individual door. So I'm going to do that one as an instance parameter. I'm going to click OK, and it appears in its own new group here. It'll have the word default in the name because the default is for the checkbox to be selected, but each object can have its own setting. So that's why they put the word default. That's how they let you know it's an instance parameter. All right, let's do one more little clever thing here. The swing angle is a parameter that we added at the beginning of this chapter. Typically, the graphic convention in most architectural firms is for existing doors to be shown with a 45-degree swing and new doors to be shown with a 90-degree swing. So what if I clue Revit into that by writing a little formula here? So I'm going to write if exist, comma, 45, comma, 90. Now what does that mean exactly? Well, I'm saying if exist equals true. So when you put a checkbox, when you put a yes/no parameter in your formulas, you're assuming the true condition. So just by saying if exist, it's like saying if exist is yes. Okay, if exist is checked. Then comma, the condition if true, comma, the condition if false. So if existing is checked, it'll use 45. And if it's not checked, it'll use 90. Let's test it out. You can see it's already 45 there. If I uncheck, it goes to 90, and I recheck, it goes back to 45. So now with a simple checkbox, I can change the swing angle to these predefined designations. If you want a third or a fourth or other angle in there, you just got to expand on your if statement to include other conditions. So everything appears to be working correctly here, but if I click on apply, I'm going to get a warning from Revit. In general, Revit does not like instance parameters and type parameters to be mixed in formulas. So it's kind of throwing me a little warning here and saying, yeah, we don't like this. All right, let's cancel that. And I should be able to remedy this pretty easily by selecting the swing angle parameter, going to modify, and just changing it to an instance parameter. So when I do that, it gains the word default. When I click apply, that should take care of the error. So now that both this one and this one are instance parameters, it doesn't have any complaint. So let's go up here and just take a look at the other parameter we created. We also created panel type, and there are currently two choices, flush and a door with a light. And if I choose that and click apply, you can see the door now has a vision panel, a vision light. And if I go back to flush, it does that. So let's OK that and save. And then we'll load it into a project. Now in the background here, I have a file called Door Sandbox, which is provided along with the exercise files. I decided to go to a simpler sandbox for this example to kind of get rid of some of the clutter here. So I'm just going to place this door right here on screen. Gives me a door tag, and I'll just kind of move that out of the way. Now I'm going to clean up a little bit here. So let me close the family file. And you can see that I actually have three other windows open here in the background. So I have the floor plan, I have this door schedule called Simple Door Schedule, and I have a 3D view over here. And so what I want to do now is just basically test out the two parameters that we've just created. And I want to do that by first adding those shared parameters to this door schedule. That was, after all, one of the primary reasons why we chose to do this. So let me select the schedule, scroll down over here, locate fields, and if you scroll through the list, you'll see the new existing field, and I can add that. And you'll see the new panel type field, and I can add that. So let's click OK. Both of those get added. I can adjust the column widths a little if I need to, so I can read it a little better. Let's just make this one a little smaller, make that one a little larger. Okay, so this is telling me the panel type, and this is telling me whether it's existing or not. Now let me select this door, copy it, maybe once or twice. And I'll do that because we said that the existing parameter was now an instance parameter. So if I uncheck existing for this one, you'll see that this door goes to 90-degree swing and the other two stay 45. While over here, if I open up the list and I change the type of panel, I'm going to get a warning from Revit that says this is going to apply to all elements of this type. So when I click OK, you're going to see a vision light add to all of the doors. So if that's not what you want, what I could do is use my control key here and select a couple of these and just simply change them to one of the other types that I've previously added to this file. So how about a 30 by 84? They get a little smaller, and you see they go back to being flush panels because this is a type-based setting. Another way to see that is if we select on here and we go to Edit Type, you'll see that each type will have its own setting for what kind of panel it uses. So by setting up our parameters using shared parameters, we get all the same benefits that we get from creating the parameters in the way that we've been doing in other movies. However, in addition, we also gain the benefit of being able to include those parameter values in schedules and in tags. Now, we saw examples of adding shared parameters in tags back in the annotation chapter, and now we're seeing some examples of adding it here to model families. But that's the main advantage of using shared parameters. You can schedule them and you can tag them. And as a secondary benefit, you get a lot more consistency between your parameters from one file to the next, from one job to the next, from one project to the next.